Welcome back to PHIL 2103, Introduction to Philosophy and Ethics. This week we're going to look at ethics and economics, and that is business ethics. So in order to start to begin acting ethically, we first need to have an ethical decision-making tool. And so in your book, from page 106 on, you see a model for making ethical decisions. That is to gather the facts, asking yourself, what do we know? What do we need to know? What are the things that are the basic level that we have on this? Determining the ethical issues that are involved, what's going on, what are these facts leading us to? Determining what virtues and principles have a bearing on the case, what rules, what regulations exist that you need to know in making that decision one way or another. What would a virtuous person do? Next, it has you listing alternatives. What are our options? What other course of action might we take? And then it asks you to compare those alternatives with the original virtues and principles. What of these alternatives seem to be morally acceptable in this regard? Lastly, we have to consider the consequences and then make a decision. In considering the consequences, if we make this moral decision, what will happen? And if we make this moral decision, what will that lead to? What will the ultimate result or consequences be of our moral choice in either direction? But as with anything, of course, the final result is that you need to make a decision and stick by it. This is a tool that we will use going forward in applying ethical decision-making to our world. Because as you'll see, you are presented every day with a plurality of ethical decisions. For example, buying from companies that use child labor is considered wrong here in the U.S. However, in the countries where they're made, it's often seen as a valid way to help support the family. So if we're to lay out that scenario, what are the ethical principles? What are the things that we need to know? What facts do we have, and what do we not yet know about this? Because in making that ethical decision, you're creating consequences on either side. If you support the company, they may continue to use child labor, which is known to be a negative thing in most societies. However, if you withdraw your support from companies that are using child labor, then you're also withdrawing support from that specific family that may need that to function. And so each option comes with its own set of choices. You have to weigh those options out and have a way to define and decide between any moral options that you have. So for example, in today's society, it's often very common for us to play video games. And these video games often require a person to apply ethics and moral situations that may or may not be in sync with real-world actions. So the question then becomes, does playing a game that would violate real-world morals impact a person? So now take that question and on your own apply it back through that decision-making matrix. What are the consequences of having a video game which presents morals or moral consequences that are skewed from what reality really has? So between those two, between the child labor scenario and the video game scenario, you can immediately see that there is a wide spectrum of moral choices that we are required to make every single day. And it begins with an individual leading the charge to say, what will I decide? What is moral and what is the wrong thing to do? What are the consequences of this chosen path versus the consequences of that chosen path? And we will then apply this decision-making matrix to some even broader scale arguments. Because what happens when that individual becomes a company of people? What happens when that individual is a CEO that's making decisions for many other people? And that is what we're going to continue to look at in this business ethics section.